Hello, everybody. My name is Sam Weeks. I am a full-time admissions consultant. And as of today, I don't have a beard. So I am feeling a little bit weird looking at myself in the camera. Today, I am joined by Rachel Zhu, who is a client from, 2 years ago, right, Rachel?
Yes, it's been 2 years at this point.
2 years. Rachel is at Kellogg at the beginning of her second year right now. So a really nice point to touch base and learn how that process is going. We're going to talk about Rachel's application journey, how Kellogg has helped her with her career development. And we're going to talk a little bit about admissions consulting and how that fit in, how that worked for Rachel. Rachel, let's dive in. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. So, hi, everyone. My name is Rachel. I come from Atlanta, Georgia. Prior to Kellogg, my experience has been in the supply chain space. I have work experience at Cisco and Amazon. And then this summer, my internship was with Apple. And after business school, I'm looking to stay within the supply chain space for big tech.
Brilliant. And so let's dive straight in talking about Kellogg, shall we? So as we said, you're at the beginning of your second year now, so you've learned your way around, you're halfway through the program. What surprised you about the Kellogg MBA?
I wouldn't say it's necessarily surprised me as much as it's like the biggest thing that I wished Kellogg to be true is true. Like, I think one of the things that Kellogg is really known for is its culture and its people. And one thing that I've noticed here is that there's a very big culture of giving back, especially when I was a first year. You're looking up to your second years. They're the ones that have been in the program a year. They kind of learn the ropes. And now as a second year, I'm paying that forward. And that culture has always been there, when during recruiting now, right? Like, I've done quite probably 1,000 coffee chats with first years. And I know a lot of my peers have done the same for consulting. A lot of us are helping case the first years, and we do it for free, which, I've heard other programs, the second years actually charge the first years, but over here, it's all about camaraderie and giving back. And so that's something that has surprised me. And I'm very happy that that has been the culture of Kellogg so far.
That's wild that second years would charge first years to do case interviews, but I guess not everywhere is as collaborative, right?
No.
Yeah. Okay, and let's talk about stereotypes. So when people are lazily comparing schools at a very high level, maybe on the forums, for example, Kellogg is dubbed the party school by some people. Is that true? And if not, how would you portray Kellogg?
I would say Kellogg is very social. We are located about an hour north of Chicago. And so what that leads us to be able to do is, like, everyone lives within a mile of each other, and so that means everywhere you walk within the city of Evanston, like, you see each other all the time, which means we're very social and we see each other a lot. It's not like, after school, we all just disperse into the city. We're all kind of stuck in the one area. So that does lead us to be very social. In terms of actually being a party school, I think it depends on what you're looking for. There are a lot of opportunities. We don't have classes on Wednesdays typically. So Tuesday nights, a lot of people like to go out or meet with their friends. But for me personally, I'm actually not that much of a party person. Like, for me, I look at my watch, it's 9 p.m. bedtime, and so I definitely go back to my apartment pretty early. And I've been
Welcome to your 30s, Rachel.
I feel super old. But yeah. So, and I've had no problem finding friends here as well who are more my speed. And so I would say, like, there's a little bit for everybody. But yes, we do tend to be pretty social, and I think that leads into that collaborative social nature of.
That's cool. Can I ask you about the curriculum? So what were some of the standout classes from last year?
Oh, so for me, I would say my favorite class was probably executive presentations. It was every Tuesday, and I would remember, like, the entire week I would dread it, just, oh my God, on Tuesday I have to go and present. And what they would do is they would mic you up and, like, stand you in front of the class in front of everyone and just go. And, like, every week the presentations would get longer and longer. And obviously you have, like, the week to prepare, right? But it was definitely very helpful for me,
Do
especially
they
because
record you so you can watch yourself back?
Yeah, but I didn't watch a single recording. I was too scared to watch myself back. But yeah, they do record you, and then there's feedback. And everyone who takes that class, we all know we're very scared of this, right? And so everyone is very, very, very supportive, and they always give very constructive comments. And like when you're making eye contact with people, they're always nodding and smiling, just because they know it's really tough to be the one standing there mic'd up trying to present. But it was very helpful for sure, because like once you're standing in front of a class and presenting like that, and then you go into maybe smaller groups or in your work environment, right? When you're presenting, you're no longer mic'd up or standing up. It makes it a lot easier. And so I would say that was a class that was very helpful for me, especially since they also not only taught you how to present, but also how to structure your presentation and what to do to be more engaging when you are in that type of environment.
That's super valuable. So when people talk about, like, broadly about leadership skills, an MBA is going to give me leadership skills. People are like, well, what does that really mean? Like, what leadership skills? Well, standing up and presenting to a class is a great example of leadership skill. Or to a class, to a group, is a great example of a leadership skill, because you've got to, as you say, structure your presentation well, come across clearly, and leave the listeners thinking, yeah, I want to follow that person. I want to do what that person has suggested. That's a really, really good example of an MBA teaching leadership skills. I love it. Okay. I want to pivot a little bit towards talking about recruiting. So you are obviously, as you alluded to, you're obviously heavy in the tech sector. So how does the MBA program help with tech recruiting?
Yeah, so Kellogg is actually a very tech heavy school. I think after consulting, we have maybe the same or like just a little bit below for tech placement. And so all of the big names know Kellogg and they love Kellogg students. And so for me, some of the doors that Kellogg was able to open is I was looking to talk to a certain company, and this was actually part of a school assignment as well, where they wanted us to like network with someone that was a very high executive. And so it was a company that I haven't worked at before, right? But I just said, hi, I see you're also a Kellogg alum in this space, and I want to chat with you. And he responded to me within 24 hours, and so I was able to get some time with him on the calendar. And I think that that's something that when you have that connection with the MBA program, you're able to open certain doors that, prior to that, you're not as easily able to do without more of a warm intro. Like I would say the shared connection of the school gives you more space to make those warm intros and be able to make those connections.
And can you talk about the career development center? I assume there's a career service. You sound like you didn't really use it that much, but I'm sure there's a strong career support for those that need it.
Oh yeah, I mean, we have our career development center is called the CMC. They do have a very strong support network for the students here. We also have student-led, I think they're called career coaches, which are second years that the CMC trains to help with the first years, and the CMC coaches themselves are pretty available. They also have like a network of data of a database for all of the different companies. They have contacts, and they're constantly sending us emails about like, hey, we've talked to this recruiter at this company, especially with the current environment. Recruiting is a little bit tougher, right? So I think they've been in overdrive contacting different companies and sending whatever intel that they have our way.
Yeah. Can you talk a little bit more about that? You're obviously on the coal face, as they say, in terms of tech, seeing what tech recruiting is like right now. Is it as tough as they say?
I would say it is a little bit tougher to pivot, but for me personally, because I've always been pretty focused within the supply chain space, it has not been as tough for me. But I would say that my journey is different, just as every single person's journey within tech looks a little bit different. For me personally, recruiting was not super tough. I was able to get quite a few interviews from different FANG companies, and I ended up at Apple this summer. And then for the full time, it seems like I'll be getting an offer from them pretty soon. So I will, fingers crossed, so hopefully I'll be settled. I think what I have seen is those who are pivoting, and typically what's very popular to pivot for tech is into product management. If you don't have that product experience, it can be a little tougher. And so my personal story is like when I got here and I looked around and everyone was doing tech and they were doing PM, I thought to myself, oh, well, maybe I should try PM too. And so I would say I did not give it my best attempt. I think deep down in my heart, I knew I wanted to stay in supply chain logistics. But seeing how everyone else was doing PM, I kind of dipped my toe in the water. I did
Yeah.
manage to get an interview for a PM role, and it was probably the worst interview I ever had. And it was because I didn't the way I should have, like those who went and prepared and cased themselves and like they knew exactly what was going to happen in that case. And I just didn't put in that effort. And so, and I think that to me was also an indication of like, hey, like your heart's not really in this,
Yeah.
and so for me, I ended up back with the supply chain operations type role, which is exactly what was suited for me. But again, my peers who did put in that backbone to do the PM interviews and case themselves beforehand and had that support network, they were able to pivot okay.
It's amazing the power of FOMO, isn't it? When I was at Oxford, I had a similar experience where I went into Oxford determined to have a finance track. I was in investment banking before. And my first week at Oxford, someone's talking about the consulting development program that Oxford has. And I immediately thought, oh my God, I haven't signed up for that. I should try that. And I found myself in this consultant development program in the first meeting thinking, what the hell am I doing here? This is not for me at all. I just got FOMO'd into it and thought, oh, I'll just try it. So what you're saying is try and there's an infinite number of options when you start an MBA of different things you can do. You got to keep that focus. Otherwise, you're going to find yourself spread way too thin, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I would just say like be honest with yourself. Like don't just do it because everyone else is doing it. Like I knew, my previous industry, what I was doing, I loved it. And it's a best fit for my skill set. And so it was just literally me looking at other people and doing something and then being in the case prep sessions and being like, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know why I'm doing this. I don't like this, And so just know yourself and know what you want to do. Listen to your heart.
So can you build on this a little bit more? So let's talk specifically about tech internships. There are different, as you've alluded to, there are different types of tech internships. You've mentioned supply chains where you're focused. You mentioned the product manager, that typical product manager role. Can you touch on the different areas within tech that you and your colleagues have applied to? And maybe a little bit about how that recruitment process is different as far as you've seen.
Yeah, I mean, I would say everyone likes to bundle tech into just one big thing, especially since like I'm part of the leadership at K-Tech, our tech club here on campus. One thing that we do struggle with, or maybe we have to communicate more, that, hey, it's not just product management that's within tech, right? Like I represent the supply chain ops type track. There's also a track for strategy and ops or like business development. There's also finance leadership development programs or like a finance track within tech. So like tech as a whole is an industry, but in terms of the different types of functions within tech, it's like any other industry, so it's not all about just product management or PMM, which is product marketing management. There are different tracks within that space.
So K-Tech, you said it was called, yeah?
Yes. So K-Tech. The club that I have is called K-Tech. And if you want to follow us on Instagram, it's called Kellogg Tech Club. I'm the one running the Instagram, by the way, so give me a shout.
Great plug. Love it. And so can you talk about what the club scene looks like at Kellogg? So are you involved? Is it like you choose one club and you kind of focus on that, or do people sort of dabble in several clubs? And what's the sort of a reasonable number of clubs to be able to actually participate in?
Yeah, so the good part about Kellogg is that all of the clubs are completely open for you to join. So you can realistically be in any club you want to, like even within our, like in the Slack that I have, I'm a part of every single, like I just look at what events are being posted, right? And if it seems like an interesting event, I'll go. But in terms of like the clubs that I am involved in, so I am on leadership for the tech club, and then I'm in the Asian Management Association, which is like an affinity club. And so I would say Kellogg's clubs are broken down mainly into like affinity groups or interest groups, and then the industry or career. And so I would say like maybe a couple of affinities and then one probably career club 2 if you're still deciding. But I think anywhere between 3 to 5 clubs is a good amount. And again, like you don't have to necessarily be committed to a club or whatever. If you just see an event that you like, you can go. But in terms of like leadership, maybe only a couple.
Gotcha. So it sounds quite open. It sounds very, as you said, collaborative is the sort of the word that keeps coming up. Yeah, I love it. Okay, let's talk about your application process. So I guess like 3 years ago we met, and we were, is it 2 years ago we met, and you were deep in the application process at that point, and you had a very interesting application process, because you actually applied a few times to a few schools 1 year before, and then we applied together. Can you walk the viewers through your application process, the year or two that it took?
Yeah. So gosh, it's been 2 years, 2 years now. But I remember when I started my MBA journey, I knew, I think towards the end of undergrad that potentially I'd be interested in looking at an MBA. And so I actually applied for the early action programs in the States. And I did that by myself. Those are the ones that you have to not be finished with undergrad, or in my case, I was doing a 2+2 type program. So I was doing my master's right out of undergrad. And so I applied to a couple of schools there. I got an interview from one, but after the interview, I ended up getting rejected. And so I thought, okay, like if I want to try again, we will try again with more help next time. And so I think that's where I found you. And so at that point, I think I took the GRE. I think my score was a 333 combined. Are they moving to a new one, or is that the GMAT that they're moving to a new one?
They're both talking about it, but yeah, okay. 333, so a high score.
Yeah, so that's kind of where I got the confidence to say, like, okay, maybe I should be targeting pretty top ranked schools. And so for the second time around, I remember thinking maybe it's time for me to try talking to a consultant just to see, what are gaps in what I've been doing differently, and how like how someone else could help me. And I remember talking to quite a few consultants. But Sam, actually for you, I remember talking to you, and I mean, I wouldn't say we got into an argument the first time we talked, but you were the reason why I ended up choosing you is because I felt like every other consultant kind of told me what I wanted to hear, but you were the one that like stood up to me, and you were like, I need you to be more focused. Like I think you need an MBA, but I need you to think that you need an MBA too. And so that to me was like, oh my goodness, like if there's someone who's going to say the right things to me and tell it to me as it is, it's this guy. And so that's why I ended up deciding to work with you. And at that time, if I remember correctly, like you had just started, and I remember talking to my parents, and they were actually kind of worried. They're like, this guy is new, like, are you sure you want to trust him? And he's all the way, in Europe. He's not even in the States. Are you sure you want to trust this guy? And I said, oh, absolutely. He's the only one that I felt like would actually tell me what I needed to hear and not just sugarcoat things.
Yeah. Totally right. I love that. It's music to my ears. And now that I've got my clean shaven face, you can see me blushing. That's really, really nice. So the next step then is we obviously started working together. And so can you talk a little bit about how you felt working together helped your application? What were some of the areas that you think we spent most time on, and you think ended up different because of working with a consultant, working together?
Yeah, I would say that I had pretty good work experience, and I had a good way to tie together like my interests, my background. But definitely where I needed a little bit of work was why the MBA and why now, right? And I think that was something that you were able to help me with. And also, I just remember, back then we would jump on a Google Doc together, and I would be writing, and you would essentially be looking at the things as I wrote, right? And so I learned a whole lot about just how to be a better writer. And like I say that now because my sister, who's 10 years younger than me, she's actually applying for undergrad now. And so I'm doing the same thing with her that you did with me. And like, fantastic. you send the newsletters to us every couple of weeks. And there was one I literally forwarded to her. I was like, write like this, and so it's like the things that you taught me, and that I learned from just being a better writer about being like more cohesive, more clear. I'm passing that forward. And it was just a very valuable summer that we spent together, just seeing how someone else wrote. And I always thought I was not a terrible writer, but I definitely learned a whole bunch more from you, just how to make that story clearer and to communicate much more effectively.
That's fantastic. Oh, I'm so happy. I'm so happy. Rachel, lovely to catch up, and very best of luck with the next year of your MBA and the next start of your tech career.
Thank you so much.
One more thing, because we haven't been awkward enough yet. Can I have a high five? Boom. You're the best. I'll see you soon.
Okay, thank you so much. Bye.